Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to our interview today. I'm Lisa Blaisdell, founder of the World Health Summit, and I am so excited to speak with Dr. Tommy Wood, who is a health and fitness expert, obviously medically trained, trained at Oxford University, which is extremely prestigious. And I'm excited to learn from you, Dr. Wood, because everything that you do and everything that you stand for, I love and try to apply every day in my own healthy journey. So tell me, you went to medical school. Did you take a traditional approach, or what turned you on to the whole world of health and fitness and taking this proactive stance?
Yeah, that's a great question. And like you said, I'm traditionally trained, so I do have a traditional medical degree, and I have a PhD in physiology and neuroscience as well. So I spent a lot of time working with people in the more, traditional spheres of both medicine and science. And that's something I still do. But throughout my career, over time, I was increasingly interested in fitness, particularly. So I started off training rowing as an undergraduate, then coaching rowing, becoming more interested in how both diet and other factors can affect performance. And then when I got to medical school, part of a side project it ended up being, it was actually through some family members. So my stepbrother was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and my stepfather is a chemical engineer, and what chemical engineers are really good at doing is they solve problems, right? It's just a system, right? It's a system. The system's broken, we can fix the system. And what you need to do in order to do that is you can't just take the traditional, this is a symptom, this is a pill, end of pipe kind of solution that, is common in traditional medical spheres. You have to look at literally everything. So that's what we did. We read 1,000+ papers and said, okay, everything is potentially relevant. We won't, just because there's no randomized controlled trial, that doesn't mean that we'll discount it. We'll take it into consideration. We built these big systems maps, causal loop diagrams, we call them, for multiple sclerosis. And a lot of the stuff that falls out is that it's clearly a disease of a civilization. It only really occurs in the Western world. And, there's lots of factors, sunlight, vitamin D, people might know about things like that. But then, other factors like B vitamins and methylation and toxins and certain chronic infections, and all this stuff becomes important. And then you realize that, literally how important all these factors are in terms of chronic disease. And I'd been kind of interested, heard about paleo, that kind of stuff, through Rob Wolf when I was looking at CrossFit and stuff like that. This is, 15 years ago. And, sort of all of that came together. And then I realized that, the traditional medical approach, and I have worked in hospitals, done my sort of early internship and residency years in the UK. And that's important. When people are acutely sick, I think that those approaches are very important. But when we're trying to keep people out of hospital, all this other stuff is important. So now that's what I do on a day-to-day basis, is help both athletes optimize performance, and then people with chronic disease, approach as much of their sort of lifestyle and fixing their environment so that they can reverse their disease. And, also some people, let's see if we can prevent that disease ever happening, right?
Absolutely. That's so great. Now, I think it's so amazing that you're working with these people taking more of a proactive approach versus the reactive approach. What do we do now? So tell me how you'll work with people. What's your, you have a lot of expertise. So what's the direction that you take with your client, whether they be a fitness professional looking to enhance their performance or someone that's sick? I'm sure it's maybe a little different, but what's your approach in terms of the diet and the regime that you have your clients take?
Yeah, so it's different for everybody, but like you sort of alluded to there, the things that you need to perform well, especially for a long time, you want to keep performing at your sport for years, decades.
Yes.
The things that you need to keep doing that are very similar to the things you need to do to either reverse a disease or prevent a disease.
Right.
The stuff that it takes to make a healthy human, that doesn't really change from person to person. So, you, and I'm sure your audience, are not going to be surprised to hear that. So, we at the moment, so I do most of my work through my company, Nourish, Balance, Thrive. So it's absolutely a team effort. I cannot do this work by myself. We have multiple coaches. There's another doctor involved, nutritionists. We have scientists. The CEO is a software engineer. So we're trying to automate as much of this process as possible. So, increase speed, reduce cost, increase accessibility, all that kind of stuff. But so somebody will come to us. They'll usually either bring some tests or have some baseline testing done. Blood tests are very important. We'll frequently do stool testing because a lot of our clients have some kind of gut health issues. Maybe some urine testing, the Dutch test, so for hormones, or organic acids testing. We absolutely use those when necessary. And then it's just the process. So diet and lifestyle are very important, and people are usually very receptive to dietary changes. But then if you're talking about stress modification or sleep, circadian rhythm, maybe they need a little bit more help with that because it's just difficult to build in those habits. So we have now a psychologist on board, Simon Marshall, who speaks to all of our clients because I can think I know what you need to do, but if you don't do it, then my opinion is essentially useless, right?
Exactly. Information's great. It's only if you implement.
Absolutely. So helping people implement those behavior changes, develop new habits, that's incredibly important too. So we have expertise for that because you can't be good at everything, right? So that's an important part of it. So putting together some kind of program protocol, maybe there'll be some supplements based on testing. It will often be a dietary change. It could just be improving the quality of the diet. It could be low FODMAP or autoimmune protocol, or sometimes we go low carb ketogenic. Sometimes I'll go all the way to the other end and do like a low fat diet. Again, depends on the diet, depends on the person, depends on the symptoms. Always focusing on food quality over quantity. That's like the ground truth. But from there, there's a huge number of manipulations we might do depending on the person in front of us.
Wow. I like that, quality over quantity, obviously. Yeah. So you don't have necessarily I mean, no one has a one size fits all, but you don't have a particular, like I've talked to some people and they are more paleo in nature, but with an emphasis on plants, but you don't necessarily subscribe to one methodology. You're flexible depending on the needs of the person. So you could put someone on a ketogenic diet, which is obviously higher in fat, but then you could also put someone on a completely plant-based, low-fat diet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's evidence to support both. And taking the preferences of the client into part of that is very important. But yeah, it depends on the disease, and how you want to skin that cat. And I certainly believe that all of those, so all the things you mentioned, depending on the disease, can be very powerful. So if it's a truly plant-based diet, I often won't recommend that for long periods of time. I do think adding in very targeted animal-based foods for certain nutrients, that's my personal preference. Some people do great on a truly plant-based, low-fat diet, and great. There's absolutely no reason for me to question that whatsoever. So, again, depending on how things fall out, and because some people can't, because of what's going on in the gut, particularly can't tolerate large influxes of fat. That seems to interact badly. So then we put them on a nutrient-dense, low-fat diet for a period of time. But again, just because we start that diet for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, doesn't mean we can't shift over to something else later. So again, depending on symptoms, but depending on test results, we might use all of those.
That's awesome. No, I really do. I love that because there's science in so many of these different lifestyle plans, but yet I think some people get so attached to one particular way, and it doesn't necessarily work for everyone.
Absolutely.
It just doesn't. So no, I think that's really awesome. Can you give me an example of either one of your athletes or maybe someone that came to you with a chronic condition or illness that you partnered with? They came to you and you helped them and they had an experience. I think people are always so inspired by stories of health improvement or health, sustainment and performance. Obviously you work with a lot of people, but
so
one that sticks out.
One that comes to mind that sort of touches on all the things that we talked about. So it's a doctor who came to us who had who had worked with some patients on a low carb ketogenic diet because they're an oncologist, and they sort of appreciated that could be potentially useful for some cancer patients, and then tried a low carbohydrate or ketogenic diet for them. So chemical testing, we saw that some potential issues in the gut. So like I talked about, there's some interactions between fat intake and some other things that might be going on there. So switched over, like I said, from a ketogenic diet to a more whole foods, plant-based diet, but still we had some targeted animal foods to sort of get in all the micronutrients, or as much as possible. And then comes some other stuff like thinking about the sport that they were doing. Is that the sport they actually want to do? Or why are they concerned about performance in that sport? Is there, something else that you're trying to achieve, some bigger picture that you're, some meaning you're trying to find through that sport? Maybe you can find that meaning elsewhere. Maybe you can, maybe being hyper focused on your performance is actually, detrimental to you, and there's some other things you can approach. So there was some, and that's absolutely what's happened now. And she's feeling better than ever, and is using some of these approaches in her practice as well. So we have a number of physicians actually who work with us, and then as much as possible they try and sort of take that into their own work. So
I love that. I love that the physicians come to you, because they've got to be the most stressed out, potentially malnourished, group of individuals. They're serving and taking care of everyone else, but how are they taking care of themselves? Yeah,
and what are they? And so physicians, often type A personality, just want to go out and work really hard, and that's their stress reduction, but maybe that's detrimental in its own way. And what's great, what I like about the fact that the physicians work with us, is they're also trained to be skeptical of the sort of stuff that we're doing, right? So them coming to us, working with us, seeing good benefit, sort of give some credence to the kind of stuff that we're doing, and I hope will sort of bridge over to the more traditional medical community to kind of show that these approaches, they really do work, and it's something that people should be incorporating into their practice where they can. Obviously the system is difficult for that, but where possible is important.
No, that's awesome. I love hearing about physicians that are more open-minded, that are more forward-thinking in their approach, because we do need more of them in our healthcare system, talking about this. So I love that you have committed your work to this area, Dr. Wood, because we need more people like you, because there's so much that people can be doing to get empowered and to take control of their own health. So how can people find you? So it sounds like you have a team of people. Obviously you're in the Pacific Northwest, but how can people connect with you, get exposed to your education and your resources and your work? And what do you have coming up that people watching this summit can, look forward to go to access you and your team?
There's multiple ways now people can sort of get to know us, and often people who end up working with us, they've done all of this, they've read posts, listened to blog, podcasts. It's a commitment to start a therapeutic relationship with somebody. You want to trust them to, when you start that. So we have a podcast. So the company is called Nourish, Balance, Thrive. The Nourish, Balance, Thrive podcast. Christopher Kelly, our CEO, who I mentioned earlier, the software engineer by training, and also he's a health coach now, and he's a former professional mountain biker. So he's the main host, but I do maybe 25 to 30% of the interviews with experts as well. Then if you will go to our website, we have the nourishbalancethrive.com. There's a highlights email series that is written by me every week. And there's like one simple thing to do to improve your health. One thing, it's a different perspective, we call it. So something that's floating out in the health sphere that, maybe if we look at the biochemistry, the physiology, maybe there's a different perspective we could take to it. And then just like some awesome things that we see and we like, and, we want people to see. And so they can sign up for that email list. And then you can obviously contact us through the website. And in terms of the sort of trying to expand this out, these approaches out to as many people as possible, we've built something called the Blood Chemistry Calculator.
Say that again, the blood
chemistry calculator. It's at bloodcalculator.com. And what this does is it sort of integrates a lot of the things that we've talked about, and it's in collaboration. So the Nourish, Balance, Thrive team, so myself, Chris Kelly, Megan Roberts, who's sort of our scientific director, and then Brian Walsh, who's a naturopathic doctor who people hopefully will have heard of because he's brilliant. And if you look him up and watch all his videos, he's amazing. And
awesome.
So we've basically created this input tool, and you can get some basic blood tests. You can, if you're in the US, you can order them through us, through the website. Just go to your local Quest lab. And it's all the stuff you could also get from your doctor. So it's like a basic lipid panel, comprehensive metabolic, liver and kidney function, iron studies, and then a CBC, a full blood count with differential. That's it, basically. And then based on those results, we give you optimal ranges. So rather than just the normal range, based on real long-term health outcomes, where might you want your results to be? And then we've calculated some scores. So there's some validated scores in the literature that sort of predict long-term mortality based on those test results. We've built some scores as well, like a metabolic health score. We can, using some machine learning algorithms that Chris has written, we can we can guess your biological age rather than your chronological age. So it's like a telomere test, but
yes,
we think it's better and it's cheaper. So we can say, how old do your blood tests look? Do your results look compared to an average population? And then beyond that, there's some machine learning algorithms. So based on, it's now it's close to 40,000 people. And we've taken those basic input markers, and there's other things that those people have also had. So it's nutrient deficiencies, hormone problems, some toxic exposures. And so based on, again, those basic input markers, we can predict whether you have low testosterone or a B12 deficiency or, elevated insulin, or, that you might fail an oral glucose tolerance test. These tests that you could get from your doctor and are really predictive of something like future type 2 diabetes, problems with metabolic health, but difficult to access, maybe expensive. Your doctor may not think to do it.
Right.
It allows you to predict all of those things. And then maybe you say, okay, so I see this, maybe I need to go get that test done, rather than like a shotgun approach, or, sort of like really give people an idea of what they might want to do next, just based on some very basic blood test results that they may have already. And they can
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I think that's really exciting. So then they can partner with you based on the results that they're seeing.
Yeah.
You guys can help them get on a better course if that's necessary. And then go back to the blood calculator and redo the blood work, and hopefully
exactly.
improvements.
Some simple things might pop up, like maybe you need some more B12 or some selenium or something, and then you can try it out for a few weeks, and then just test again and see what it thinks. And beyond that, the aim is to build a network of coaches. So you see these results. We obviously can't work with everybody. We're not going to pretend that we have the capacity to do that. So then when something pops up, you're like, well, I need to speak to somebody about this. So then we're going to say, well, this person is an expert in lead toxicity, if that's what you might have going on. So that hasn't happened yet, and we're still building a lot of the what to do's into the system. But over time, we'll be able to connect people with the absolute best person to help them work through that problem, and they can do that all remotely. It doesn't need to be a doctor near you or anything like that, because most of this is supplements and lifestyle changes. So anything that can all be done online.
Right. Oh, that is so cool. I love that idea. I want people to know about that, because I think so many times people don't take action because they're not exactly sure what to do. Because they don't necessarily know what they need. So, and a basic blood panel doesn't always tell the full story, but if you can really go a little bit deeper, then you'll get more information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. This is great, Dr. Wood. I'm so just thrilled that you and your team are doing what you're doing. I just think we need more people like you, especially with your training and your background in the traditional medical realm. So I just want to thank you so much. So it's Nourish. I want to make sure I have this right. Nourish, Thrive, Nourish and Thrive?
Nourish, Balance, Thrive. It's a bit of a mouthful.
Okay.
NBT for short. Nourish, Balance, Thrive.
Okay, perfect. So we'll make sure that people can find you and that they can align themselves with you and improve their health. So thank you so much for taking the time today. I so appreciate it, and keep doing what you're doing. We need you guys.
Well, thank you.
All right. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye.